In 1908, in a collapsed basement room buried under 3,700 years of rubble, an Italian archaeologist reached into the dirt and pulled out a clay disc the size of a bread plate. Both sides were covered edge to edge in symbols, human figures, birds, fish, plants, unlike anything he had ever seen. That disc still exists, and in the 116 years since it was found, not a single expert on Earth has been able to read it. The site was Phaistos, in the rolling hills of southern Crete, not the famous Palace of Knossos in the north, but its equally massive counterpart on the island's southern coast. Italian archaeologist Luigi Pernier was directing excavations there in the summer of 1908, methodically cutting through rooms sealed since the Bronze Age. On July 3rd, in what excavation records call Room 8 of the Northwest Wing, he found something he could not explain. Alongside the disc, Pernier found a small clay tablet inscribed in Linear A, the writing system used across Minoan Crete and still undeciphered today. The two objects lay in the same layer of ash and collapsed debris. Whatever had destroyed this room, fire, earthquake, deliberate sealing, had locked both objects in place like a time capsule waiting 3.5 millennia to be opened. The disc itself is modest in size but astonishing in density. It measures roughly 15.8 centimeters across, about 6 inches, and just under a centimeter thick. Both flat sides are covered in symbols arranged in a clockwise spiral running from the outer rim inward to the center. The total inscription, 241 symbol impressions, organized into 61 distinct groups separated by carved lines. Those 61 groups are structured the way words are structured, at least that is what the spacing implies. Within them, exactly 45 distinct symbols appear in varying combinations. The symbols are recognizable as miniature pictures: a helmeted walking figure, a hand, a bird in flight, a fish, a cat's head, a beehive, a branch, a child, an eagle's head. Together, they form a visual vocabulary unlike anything else ever found in the ancient world. But the most critical detail about the disc is not what the symbols look like, it is how they were made. Each one was pressed into the wet clay using a small individual seal, not drawn or carved by hand. Whoever created this disc carried a kit of at least 45 miniature stamps and applied them one by one in a deliberate sequence. This is the earliest confirmed use of movable-type printing technology in human history, more than 3,200 years before Gutenberg's press. Making 45 individual stamp tools requires skill, planning, and a clear purpose. You do not carve a complete set of miniature seals to use exactly once. The logic of the technology implies the maker expected to produce multiple texts, to stamp this script again and again onto other documents. And that is where the mystery sharpens considerably. Across all of Crete, across more than a century of digging at dozens of Minoan sites, no other fragment of this script has ever been found. Not one. The Minoan civilization dominated Crete from roughly 2700 to 1100 BCE and was extraordinarily prolific in its record-keeping. Excavations at the Palace of Knossos alone have yielded over 3,000 clay tablets in Linear A and Linear B. Inventories, tribute records, palace accounts. These scripts left thousands of examples spread across dozens of sites. The Phaistos script, by contrast, exists on one object, found in one room, in one palace. If the stamps were ever used again, every trace of those documents has vanished. The disc was deliberately fired, baked at high temperature until the clay was hard enough to last millennia. This is critical. Most Minoan clay tablets were never fired. They were sun-dried and survived only by accident when buildings burned around them. Someone made a conscious decision to preserve this disc permanently. That single choice, made 3,700 years ago, is the reason we can hold it in our hands today, and the reason its unreadable message has survived to frustrate us. Archaeologists date the disc to the Middle Minoan III period, approximately 1700 to 1600 BCE. This was the height of Minoan power. The great palaces at Knossos and Phaistos had just been rebuilt following a major earthquake. Trade networks connected Crete to Egypt, Cyprus, and the Greek mainland, and Minoan art was reaching its most sophisticated phase. Whatever this disc recorded, It was made at the absolute peak of a civilization that would collapse within a few centuries. Arthur Evans, the British archaeologist who excavated Knossos, named the Minoan civilization and introduced it to the modern world, examined the disc shortly after Pernier's discovery. Evans had already identified two Minoan scripts at Knossos, Cretan hieroglyphs and Linear A. He recognized immediately that the Phaistos symbols were distinct from both. He cataloged the disc carefully, acknowledged its importance, and spent the rest of his career unable to crack it. He died in 1941 without an answer. The decipherment problem is structural, not merely difficult. To read an unknown script, linguists need one of three things: a bilingual text in a known and unknown language, like the Rosetta Stone, which preserved the same decree in Greek and Egyptian, or a large corpus of thousands of examples to extract statistical patterns, or a closely related script that has already been understood. The Phaistos Disc offers none of these. It is a single document, in a completely isolated script, with no translation and no parallel anywhere on Earth. Consider how Linear B was cracked in 1952. Michael Ventris worked from thousands of clay tablets found at multiple sites, giving him statistical patterns across tens of thousands of individual sign occurrences. He also had the crucial insight that the language beneath the symbols was an early form of Greek, a known language family he could test against. Ventris had raw material on a massive scale. The Phaistos Disc gives a researcher 241 symbols, 0 parallel texts, and an unknown language beneath them. The arithmetic simply does not work. That has not stopped people from trying. Since 1908, the disc has drawn more proposed decipherments than almost any other ancient artifact. Hundreds of books and academic papers, each offering a different reading. Proposed translations include a military dispatch, a hymn to a Minoan goddess, an astronomical calendar, a fertility prayer, a ship's manifest, and a legal proclamation. Not one has won broad scholarly acceptance, because not one can be independently verified. There is simply no way to test whether any interpretation is correct. The most methodologically careful modern attempt came from Gareth Owens, a British linguist working in Crete, who published an analysis beginning around 2014. Owens compared recurring symbol clusters on the disc against known vocabulary fragments in Linear A, the older undeciphered Minoan script. He argued that a specific symbol group appearing near the top of side A likely references the Minoan mother goddess, the central figure in Minoan religion. Owens's work drew serious attention, but equally sharp criticism. The fundamental problem is circular. His analysis used Linear A to interpret the Phaistos script, but Linear A itself has never been decoded. Comparing two unknown systems to illuminate one through the other is methodologically fragile. Critics noted that any apparent symbol correspondence could be coincidental. Real decipherment requires an external verification mechanism, a way to check whether a reading is correct, and none exists for either script. Linguists have also approached the disc statistically, without making any claims about meaning. The distribution of symbols across the 241 impressions follows Zipf's law, a mathematical pattern present in all natural languages, where a small number of signs appear very frequently and most appear rarely. The Phaistos Disc matches this profile precisely, confirming that the text is almost certainly real language and not decoration, randomness, or an elaborate fraud. But statistics alone cannot tell us what that language says, and the disc's origin raised a question that nobody had thought to ask. A significant minority position holds that the disc did not originate in Crete at all. The Phaistos symbols share almost no signs with any Minoan script found at any other site on the island, an unusual isolation for a supposedly local writing tradition. Archaeologist Yves Due noted that while Cretan hieroglyphs and Linear A share common signs across dozens of sites, the Phaistos script shares none. Some researchers have proposed the disc was an import from Anatolia or from an Aegean trading partner whose records have not yet been found. If true, the script might be lying buried somewhere we simply have not dug yet. And then, exactly 100 years after the disc was discovered, someone made an even more radical claim. In 2008, an American archaeologist named Jerome Eisenberg published a paper arguing the disc was a modern forgery, specifically, that Luigi Pernier had manufactured it to advance his professional reputation. Eisenberg cited anomalies in the excavation record and what he described as suspiciously clean and uniform stamp impressions. The claim made international headlines and reopened a debate that most scholars considered long settled. The Heraklion Archaeological Museum commissioned independent scientific testing in response. Thermoluminescence dating confirmed the disk's antiquity. Clay composition analysis matched sediment profiles from the Phaistos region. Most conclusively, Pernier's original excavation notebooks, preserved in Rome, contained detailed contemporaneous sketches of the disk made before cleaning, ruling out any post-excavation fabrication. The forgery claim did not survive scientific scrutiny. Today, the disk sits in Case 41 of the Heraklion Archaeological Museum in Crete. It has never been loaned to another institution and has never left Greece. During the German occupation of Crete in World War II, museum staff buried the most precious artifacts beneath the city to protect them from looting. The Phaistos Disc survived the occupation underground, sealed in darkness, and returned to public display after the war. Modern technology has given researchers the most detailed view of the disk ever possible. High-resolution 3D scans accurate to fractions of a millimeter have been produced and released publicly for study worldwide. These scans revealed something invisible to the naked eye. Variations in the depth and pressure of individual stamps indicate the symbols were not applied in one continuous session. The disk appears to have been inscribed in deliberate stages, meaning whoever produced it worked carefully and methodically, not hastily. The count of 45 distinct signs tells specialists something important about the type of writing system they are dealing with. Alphabets use roughly 20 to 30 characters. Logographic systems, where each sign represents a whole word, require thousands of characters. 45 signs fall squarely in the range of a syllabary, a system where each symbol represents one spoken syllable. Linear B is a syllabary of roughly 87 signs. Linear A is similar in count. If the Phaistos script is syllabic, it fits a pattern already well established across Bronze Age Crete. But identifying the script type only deepens the core problem. If the Phaistos symbols are syllables, decoding them requires knowing what language they encode. In Minoan, the language of the people who built Phaistos, is a language isolate. It appears unrelated to any other known language on Earth. It is not Greek, not Semitic, not Indo-European. Linguists believe Minoan arrived in Crete with the first Neolithic settlers around 7000 BCE and evolved in near-complete isolation for thousands of years before Bronze Age civilization emerged. Even the reading direction is disputed. Some scholars argue the spiral should be read from the outer rim inward, unwinding toward the center. Others argue the innermost circle is the beginning and reading moves outward to the edge. The two approaches produce entirely different structural analyses of the text. Since no one understands the language, meaning cannot settle the argument. And without knowing the direction, the structure cannot be determined. It is a locked circle with no entry point. Computational analysis has made one point unambiguous. The Phaistos script is statistically unlike any known Mediterranean or Aegean writing system. Researchers who have mapped its symbol distribution against multiple ancient scripts, including Linear A, Linear B, Cretan hieroglyphs, Cypro-Minoan, and Phoenician, find no meaningful cluster or resemblance. The script's statistical signature is unique. Whatever tradition produced it, it belongs to no family of writing that has left any other trace in the archaeological record. The broad consensus among specialists now rests on a cluster of solid points. The disk is genuine. Its text is real language. It was manufactured using a specialized, premeditated printing technology requiring significant investment of time and craft. It was considered important enough to preserve permanently through deliberate firing. And it comes from a palace with strong religious and administrative functions. These points together indicate an institutional document, something produced by an organization with purpose, resources, and a reason to make a text last. The religious interpretation carries the most explanatory weight of any single theory. Minoan palaces were not purely administrative centers. They were simultaneously religious institutions, with dedicated shrine rooms, sacred vessels, ritual offering deposits, and cultic imagery throughout their architecture. A fired clay hymn or invocation fits naturally into that context. The deliberate stamping of text, standardizing it with precision tools rather than writing it by hand, could represent an effort to fix a sacred formula exactly and permanently. The internal structure of the text supports this reading. Liturgical language, hymns, prayers, ritual chants, tends to repeat. The same phrases return in cycles. The same invocations loop back in predictable patterns. The Phaistos Disc's symbol groups show precisely this kind of structure, certain clusters appearing multiple times across both sides, with enough variation to avoid exact repetition, but enough consistency to suggest a refrain. If this interpretation is correct, the disc may preserve the oldest religious text in European history. After 116 years of scrutiny, the working conclusion is this: the Phaistos Disc is most likely a liturgical document, a hymn or ritual prayer fixed permanently in fired clay, produced in a palace with a strong sacred function, in a script that belonged to a specialized tradition that left no other surviving trace. The language beneath it is probably Minoan, an isolate with no living relatives. Decipherment by conventional means is nearly impossible unless another document in this script is found, which has not happened yet. A single clay disc, 6 inches across, covered in 241 symbols pressed with 45 individual stamps, fired hard and buried for 3,700 years. Its maker built it to last. Whether we ever understand what it says is now our problem to solve. What do you think the disc contains? A prayer, a law, a record, or something else entirely? Leave your answer below.